Some of you can point to the exact moment things went wrong, the blow-up fight, the breakup that gutted you. That one day at school you still think about at 2 in the morning. You've got a scene, a memory, a before and after. But a lot of you don't have that. And it's confusing as hell. You sit there, trying to figure out why you feel the way you feel, and nothing comes up. No yelling, no dramatic story. Nobody hit you. Nobody left. On paper, your childhood was fine. Normal, even. And yet, there's this feeling you can't shake. Like something's off. Like you're not fully connected to yourself. Like you're carrying around some invisible damage you can't actually name. So you start doing the thing so many of us do. You talk yourself out of it. I'm probably just overreacting. Other people had it so much worse. I don't even have a reason to feel like this. Here's the thing, though. What if you're not overreacting? What if you're just looking for the wrong kind of proof? Because some wounds come from things that happened to you, and some come from things that never happened at all, when you actually needed them to. Think about how your memory works. It's built to grab onto events, stuff that interrupts the normal flow of your day, the accident, the argument, the moment someone humiliated you or walked out the door. Your brain is wired to flag surprises and disruptions. But what happens when nothing happens? What do you do with an absence? How do you remember the comfort that never showed up, the person who never asked how you were really doing? You can't, really. Not as a memory. Because those aren't moments. They're more like weather patterns, background conditions you lived inside of for years without ever clocking them as unusual. So picture a kid growing up in a house where nobody really checks in emotionally. Not because the parents are monsters, nothing that dramatic. Maybe they're just stretched thin, maybe they're stressed out of their minds, maybe they grew up exactly the same way and have zero idea how to do it differently. Maybe they genuinely love their kid and still have no clue how to connect with them emotionally because nobody ever showed them how either. The kid's fed, clothed, has a bed to sleep in. From the outside, the family looks completely functional. But when that kid is upset, nobody really notices. When they're scared, nobody sits with them and helps them make sense of it. When they get hurt, everyone jumps straight to fixing the problem instead of asking how it felt. When they're excited about something, nobody really lights up with them. Nothing bad happened, but something important just didn't. It's like growing up in a house with the heat on, but nobody ever asks if you're cold. And kids don't process that with logic. A 5-year-old isn't sitting there thinking, my emotional needs are going unmet. They're not analyzing the family dynamic. They're doing what kids do best, adapting, silently, automatically, without even realizing it's happening. Over time, that adapting turns into conclusions. Not words exactly. More like gut-level assumptions that get baked in early. Maybe my feelings aren't that important. Maybe needing comfort is a bad look. Maybe it's safer to just handle things myself. Maybe nobody really wants to hear what's going on in my head. And those beliefs get locked in, years before you'd ever have the words to explain them. This is where it gets interesting, because memory doesn't just work one way. Most of us think of memory as a story we can replay. A scene. Something we can literally describe out loud. Psychologists call that explicit memory, the I remember this happening kind. But there's a second kind that's way quieter. It doesn't live in stories. It lives in your expectations, your habits, the way your body reacts before your brain even catches up. It's your nervous system quietly taking notes on what the world is actually like. You don't need to remember 1,000 small moments of being emotionally overlooked. Your nervous system remembers for you. It learned what to expect, what feels safe, what feels like a complete waste of time. That's why grown adults do things they can't fully explain. Someone asks, "How are you doing?" And "I'm fine" flies out of your mouth before you've even thought about it. Not because you're hiding something, because you genuinely don't know how to answer that question. Someone tries to support you, and it feels weirdly uncomfortable, almost itchy. Someone shows up for you consistently, and some part of you doesn't know what to do with it. And here's the one that gets people every time. Someone asks what you need. And somehow that's a harder question than solving everyone else's problems combined. Feels random. It's not random. Think about a kid who figures out early that expressing emotions doesn't get them anywhere. Eventually, they just stop. Not because the feelings go away, because the strategy stopped working. And once your brain finds something that gets you through childhood in one piece, it tends to hang on to it forever if you let it. The problem is that strategy was built for a specific environment, and you don't live there anymore. The adaptation sticks around long after the reason for it is gone. So maybe you turn into the ultra-independent one. People admire you for it. Responsible, reliable, never asks for anything. But underneath all that competence might be one quiet belief running the whole show. Nobody's coming, so I'd better handle it myself. You become the person everyone calls when they need help, and you have no idea who you'd call. Or maybe you go the other way. You become the chronic people pleaser, always scanning the room, always making sure everyone else is comfortable, always bending yourself into whatever shape keeps the peace. From the outside, it looks like kindness. And sometimes it is. But sometimes it's an old survival strategy wearing a nice outfit. If my needs don't matter, I guess my job is taking care of everyone else's. You know exactly what your friends need before they say it. You have no idea what you need, even after someone asks twice. And here's what most people get wrong about all this. These patterns don't stick around because you're weak. They don't stick around because something's broken in you. They stick around because, at some point, they made complete sense. Your nervous system isn't out here trying to sabotage your life. It's protecting you with information it downloaded years ago. The catch is, old information isn't always accurate anymore. It's like using a 15-year-old weather forecast to decide what to wear this morning. Doesn't matter how confidently your brain hands you that forecast, it's still outdated. And that's exactly what these emotional patterns are doing. Responding to today with instructions written a long, long time ago. And because these lessons didn't come from one big dramatic event, they came from thousands of tiny, forgettable moments. People talked themselves out of taking it seriously. My childhood wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. I don't have a real reason to feel this way. They're measuring their pain against some imaginary bar. Something dramatic enough, something undeniable enough to count. But pain doesn't need to be dramatic to be real. A plant doesn't need someone to rip its leaves off to die. It just needs nobody to water it for long enough. Slow and quiet still counts. And your emotional wounds don't need a movie-worthy backstory to be legitimate. Some of the deepest stuff grows in complete silence, so quietly that you don't even notice it's there until you're 30. Wondering why you can never quite name what you're feeling, why relationships wear you out even when the person is great to you, why you feel disconnected even surrounded by people who genuinely care. Why you hit a goal you'd dreamed about for years and still feel weirdly empty standing on the other side of it. And because there's no obvious origin story, you assume the problem has to be you. But what if it's not that you're broken? What if you're just responding exactly how any human being would respond after years of emotional absence? Because here's the truth. We don't just need food and shelter and a roof over our heads. We need our inner world reflected back to us by someone else. We need help making sense of what we're feeling. That's literally how kids learn who they are, not by being told, by being seen. And when that's missing, the effects usually aren't loud. They're subtle. A vague sense of being disconnected from yourself. A feeling like you're performing your life instead of actually living it. Like you're fluent in everyone else's feelings and still translating your own from a language you were never taught. Like everyone else got a manual for being a person and yours got lost in the mail. The good news, and there is good news, is that none of this is permanent. But changing it starts with actually seeing it, not fighting it, not beating yourself up over it, just recognizing it for what it is. Because you can't question a belief you don't even know you're carrying. Maybe it's not that people won't support you. Maybe the belief is that support was never really on the table for someone like you. Maybe it's that yours never felt worth bringing up. Maybe the belief isn't even something you'd say out loud. It's just become the water you swim in. That's why awareness actually matters here. Not because noticing something fixes it overnight, but because you can't update a lesson you don't know you're still following. This isn't about digging through your past for that one perfect memory that explains everything. People spend years chasing that and come up empty. It's about noticing the conclusions your nervous system drew a long time ago and asking one simple question. Is this even true anymore? Because sometimes healing doesn't start with remembering what happened to you. Sometimes it starts with finally noticing what didn't. And once you can actually see the pattern, you get a choice you didn't have before. You can start treating your own emotions like information instead of inconveniences. You can practice asking for support instead of defaulting to carrying it all alone. You can learn, slowly, that needing people isn't a weakness, it's just part of being human. And maybe the biggest thing, you can stop waiting for a dramatic enough story before you let your own experience count. Because not every wound comes with a memory attached. Some just show up as a feeling, a pattern, a quiet conclusion you've been carrying around for years without ever putting a name to it. So don't just ask yourself what happened in your childhood, ask yourself what might have been missing. That question alone might tell you more than any memory ever could. If any part of this hit close to home, you're not alone in it. And that's honestly the whole reason I make these videos. Stick around, because we're going to keep digging into this stuff together.